the mayor. Make sure he's okay to start.
Let me quickly count. Here we go. We got one. Great. Good. So, Tim, ready when you are, and Rick, if you can start us up. Good to go.
All set here.
All right, great. Well, I think you were ahead of me on that one, Rick, but that sounds good. So, welcome everybody and good evening. This is the Township Council conference meeting for March 2nd, 2021. This conference meeting of the Council of the Township of Montclair is being broadcast live on Channel 34 and is streaming live on Montclair TV 34 YouTube channel. It's available on demand and can and will be rebroadcast. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance to the flag, which is one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilor Cummings,
Present.
Deputy Mayor Herlock,
Present.
Councilor Price Abrams,
Present.
Councilor Russo,
Present.
Councilor Schlager,
Here.
Councilor Yacobelis,
Present.
Mayor Spiller.
Present. Thank you. Next, I'm going to open it up for public comment in an effort to minimize exposure to COVID-19 and to maintain social distancing practices. This council meeting and further council meetings until the pandemic is over will only be available to the public remotely. Those who wish to participate now during public comment should dial in to 408-418-9388. When asked to enter an access code, please enter 129-750-1181 and then press pound. When asked to enter an attendee number, please press pound. When asked to state your name, please state your name and address and press pound. The administrator will say when it's your turn to call, the caller's turn to speak, and the caller will then hear two beeps. At that time, the caller will have an opportunity to make his or her comments. I would just ask all my colleagues to please mute if you are one of you hear paper shuffling, and so we can hear our public commenters. And with that, Mr. Stafford, I will turn it over to you to facilitate and manage the public comment section. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Caller with the number beginning 347-268. It is your turn to comment. 347-268. Please, for the record, state your name and do your best to keep your comments under 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Chris Rizzo. I would just like to open the comments, as I suspect we'll get a number of comments on the rent control ordinance this evening and the pending legal decision in front of the town. I mean, I'll keep my comments brief. It's really just, it simply comes down to the fact that I think it's egregious that the town continues to spend money to fight a legal battle that could be easily avoided and should have been avoided a long time ago. Had the council been willing and able to sit down and negotiate an ordinance that works for all townspeople, both tenants and landlords, this entire situation could have been avoided. The fact that it's even being considered to continue spending taxpayer dollars fighting this legal battle is a little bit mind-boggling to me. When there's millions of dollars of lost revenue due to the pandemic, we're going to continue to spend money to fight a legal battle that could be easily avoided with a simple negotiation. The landlords have reached out numerous times, dozens of times, to various council people, to the mayor, to everybody involved, to try and mend the fences, to try and bring this to a peaceful and negotiated resolution and with a workable ordinance that works for all parties. A legal battle in the court was our last resort, was our last choice, was our last option. It's an option that we've been seeking to avoid, that we would like to avoid, and there's zero reason for a prolonged legal battle, for a prolonged appeal in the courts. That's only going to cost taxpayers more money. It's going to cost tenants more time, prevent them from getting the outcome that they want, and it's only going to breed resentment between the two groups in our town when there's really not that much difference between the landlords and the tenants. So I just hope that the council can, come to its senses, see that there's actually a resolution here that's pretty achievable, easy, within grasp, within reach. All we need to do is just sit down and talk about this as two groups of people, as opposed to two opposing parties, when that's really not the case and not the reality at all. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your service. Be well. Bye.
Thank you. Caller with the number starting 973-752, 973-752. It is your turn to comment. Please, for the record, state your name and do your best to keep your comments under 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Charles Gormally. I'm an attorney with Brock, Eichler, and Roseland. I represent the Committee of Petitioners in connection with their attempt to have a petition certified to have the question of the rent control ordinance be put on the ballot. I'm sure you all have been updated on the court's determination that, in fact, the clerk was arbitrary and capricious when she refused to certify the petition and rejected 168 signatures in the first instance, and then an additional 27 signatures when the cure was submitted, and ultimately determined that the petition was an 18 signatures short of being certified. We believed quite strongly that that decision, first with respect to the 168 signatures, and then compounded when she repeated that decision and rejected 27 more signers, 20 of whom, by the way, had submitted signatures to the petition on 2 separate occasions. And we weren't seeking to count them twice. We just want them to be counted once. The court, frankly, was not informed of the law properly to be applied to this situation. And when the court was properly informed of the law and the standards that govern the clerk's behavior, the judge did something that in 40 years of practice I've seen only in 1 or 2 circumstances, and that is the court admitted that its initial decision was in error and changed this decision by 180 degrees and directed the petition to be certified and directed this council within 20 days to consider the ordinance to repeal the rent control ordinance. I know on your agenda today, the rent control issue is not even mentioned. That's strikingly similar to the way the agenda appeared for the first reading of the original rent control ordinance on the eve of the pandemic being declared in New Jersey. And my message to the council is a simple one. As a former council person and mayor of my town, it's difficult to admit, a governing body in particular, to admit that perhaps they were too quick and that perhaps it's time to reset a relationship. What I'd urge this council to do is use the opportunity of a public meeting, properly noticed to the public, to reconsider its previous adoption of the rent control ordinance and instead repeal the rent control ordinance. As I've indicated in direct correspondence to your council, the landlord community and the property owner community in Montclair stands ready to engage in the discussion about rent control in town, unlike the previous adoption. All that will happen by continuing this is the town will subject itself to our claim in this lawsuit to pay our attorney's fees, because what's been done to the Committee of Petitioners has been a violation of their civil rights. So I'd urge the council to take this opportunity to reset the relationship. Thank you.
Caller with the number starting 973-820. It is your turn to comment. 973-820. Please, for the record, state your name and do your best to keep your comments under 3 minutes.
Hi, this is Tony Martin. Hi, this is Tony Martin, Vice President of the Tenants Organization of Montclair. Okay, so I would disagree entirely with the Montclair Property Owners Association and their attorney's interpretation of what has occurred. I find their remarks about what has occurred so far to be condescending and not representative of what has gone on. We do not think that the landlords want to engage in discussion. We have had, off the record entreaties by them. We've had, sort of back alley suggestions about which way the town should go that would satisfy them. However, we have always operated the tenants group and our coalition of residents with the club of their legal action over our head. And I do not think they want to negotiate the rent control ordinance. I think they want to write it. As for the recent court ruling, sometimes you do just have to scratch your head. The landlord's attorney convinced this judge to vacate his own ruling by citing a precedent from 1964 that the property owners group had not previously even brought up, and quote unquote highlighting things they had already argued. I find it very strange. It's a strange and fragile ruling which should be easily toppled with intelligent reconsideration, and I urge you on behalf of our coalition to appeal. If I may take a couple more minutes, I am speaking for an organization. I also want to speak about the need to extend the COVID-related freeze on rent hikes, which is set to expire March 31, and which the NAACP and affiliated groups have requested you to consider extending for at least another 3 months. My first point would be that there was, according to most recent reports, a 2% increase in COVID cases in Essex County. Also, while I understand we are all under duress, and we know that includes landlords, I must note that landlords who do face losses from diminished rent receipts can at least write their loss off on their taxes. Lastly, I need to say this one more thing. At this point, landlords continue to be either uninformed or willfully ignoring the fact that the freeze on rent hikes exists. We continue to field reports that landlords are pressuring tenants to sign leases with increases as of April 1st. Thank you so much. Good night.
Thank you. Caller with the number starting 862262. It is your turn to comment. 862262. Please, for the record, state your name and do your best to keep your comments under 3 minutes.
Hi, this is Annalise Scherfen. I'm a Montclair resident, and I'm calling in as a member of Montclair Beyond Policing. At Montclair Beyond Policing, we are opposed to reformist reforms that increase funding for the police, reinforce their legitimacy, and expand their powers and presence in vulnerable communities. Reformist reforms include professionalization measures like de-escalation and anti-bias training, diversity in hiring, body cameras, community review boards, and community outreach programs. And I'm here tonight to say our community must rethink public safety, what it means to be safe, and for whom that safety is provided. We simply should not rely on police officers armed with guns to handle everything from traffic control to mental health crises to controlling the children in our high school. especially when we have evidence that the Montclair's police force uses force on Black and brown folks at a disproportionate rate. We know that the township budget will be up for approval at some point in the near future, but we don't know when. Such information is not easily accessed or readily available. I would hope that the public would really be brought in to the discussion of the budget in hopes that it would truly reflect the values of the residents. I do not believe that we should continue to fund the police at the rate that we have, and I certainly would not support yet another increase in the police budget. And any changes to programs that truly provide public safety, such as a mental health first responder program, should not be driven by the system of social control we are trying to reduce, namely the police. Thank you so much for your time.
Caller with the number starting 201-207, 201-207. It is your turn to comment. Please, for the record, state your name and do your best to keep your comments under 3 minutes.
Hi, everyone. My name is Reverend John Rogers. I'm one of the pastors at First Congregational Church in Montclair. Like many of you, I was very disheartened by the judge's decision regarding rent control. I believe it is a moral imperative for the council to appeal it. As a millennial who grew up in Montclair and who loves this town, I am worried about our future. I have witnessed Montclair become less diverse and more cost prohibitive. We all understand that Montclair can't live into its ideals of inclusivity and diversity if everyday people are priced out of their homes. I am grateful for the coalition that worked together for the current, very reasonable rent control ordinance. Let's do everything we can to finally implement it. Finally, I'd like to request a 90-day extension on the rent freeze ordinance. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Caller with the number starting 973-903. It is your turn to comment. 973-903. Please, for the record, state your name and do your best to keep your comments under 3 minutes. Nine seven three 903. Caller with the number starting 973-337. It is your turn to comment. 973-337. Please, for the record, state your name and do your best to keep your comments under 3 minutes. Nine seven three 337. Caller with the number starting 201-233. It is your turn to comment. 973. I'm sorry, 201-233. Please, for the record, state your name and do your best to keep your comments under 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Gillian Igo. I'm a member of the Homeowners Committee of the Tenants Organization of Montclair, and I'm also calling in to support once again for rent control. I feel like I've called in so many times because this has gone on so long, and like many others calling in, I was surprised by the judge's reversal. I just want to point out that this is not something that happened overnight. This effort took organizing by many groups over a long time. So the concept that it just appeared and then was voted on is not what happened. And also just point out that the rent control ordinance that was passed is incredibly reasonable, and rent control is common across towns, just like Montclair, across New Jersey. In fact, most of the surrounding towns. This is not something that is exceptional. It is not unusual. It has just been made to seem that way by landlords and the property owners association. So just calling in to ask the council to consider appealing that and continue pushing for this, because it shouldn't be this difficult to implement a reasonable measure like the one that was passed. I also would like to echo the request to extend the rent control freeze. Despite, the encouraging numbers of vaccines going out, we're still amid a pandemic, and that is still having such an impact on people's ability to earn and to support themselves and their families. And so just request a extension of that for an additional 90 days. Thank you.
Caller with the number starting 201424. It is your turn to comment. 201424. Please, for the record, state your name and do your best to keep your comments under 3 minutes.
This is Ron Simoncini, Montclair Property Owners Association. I think this is a really important moment because I think we've all finally come back to where there's an even footing. And through all the litigation and the messaging on this thing, a lot's been lost. And I think it can be put back together, as some of the other previous callers have said. Unfortunately, I don't hear the same tone from the tenants organization. I hear a different tone than I heard a couple of weeks ago. But certainly this notion that there have been back-alley meetings and all this other stuff, there's a lot of conversation about rent control in Montclair right now. Most of it focuses on the council's ineptitude related to how it passed it and how it's waged a war against us in court. It was inappropriate, and it's getting expensive for both sides, and it's unnecessary. However, I will also caution that the idea that there are a substantial population of landlords who don't want to go to referendum, who want to somehow work this out, it's not universal by any means. And I can tell you that in my membership, I get calls every single day from people urging that we go to referendum, that we not even consider a Montclair rent control ordinance. It's something to think about as you consider this, that a lot of the dialogue around this is about affordable housing. Rent control doesn't create affordable housing. Rent control doesn't discriminate between white and black. It's not a racial issue. Housing is not a racial issue. Fair housing prevents us from letting someone make a determination based on race. We all know that. This is an economic issue. And to address the economic issue, if you want to support affordable housing, you will see no one who's more assistant in that than a property owner. Property owners want to see housing be affordable to customers. They want more affordable housing, but you can't get it by adopting a rent control ordinance, because no matter how much you limit rents, you can never select the tenant. The tenant is not the person who needs the privilege the most. The tenant is the person who best qualifies to rent the apartment. So even if you don't have vacancy decontrol, you're not getting the tenant that you want to protect. You can only do that by creating more affordable housing. The Property Owners Association would like to be your partner in that, of course. But first you need to get this rent control ordinance right. If there's going to be rent control in Montclair, it's got to be rent control that's equitable. You can't impose additional taxation on the property owner. You can't impose additional costs within the municipality to administer this ordinance. You should be sensible about this and figure out a way to talk to everybody about it so that you can find your way out of it. Because right now you're in a mess.
Thank you. Caller with the number starting 973-619. It is your turn to comment. 973-619. Please, for the record, state your name and do your best to keep your comments under 3 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Oh, great. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I hope you're all doing well. This is Ahaba. I'm the president of the Tenants Organization of Montclair. We're an advocacy group. I'm hoping we don't see any more snow and hopeful for in-person council meetings again one day. So we are the group that formed for rent control in beautiful Montclair, New Jersey. I'd like my 5 minutes tonight. Thank you. So this township is a hometown to many and a new hometown to many others. Tonight's feature is the Tenants Organization of Montclair's requests for and support, supreme support, of an appeal to a higher court with regards to the reversal of one judge's ruling. Briefly for the public, anyone tuning in for the first time, on January 15th of 2021, we had a ruling in our favor for our rent control ordinance to proceed to implementation. Then on February 22nd, said ruling was reversed by this one judge. So what does this mean? Rescind or referendum? I think not. Those are not the only options. We wholeheartedly support an appeal to a higher court. Just in case you missed it and you're just tuning in, we support an appeal to a higher court. Option number 3 sounds the best to me. 3 is more than a charm. And not having rent control in Montclair does a lot of harm. We want to see our community sustained. I will acknowledge that the pandemic has made this 10,000 times more important. For the 15,000 plus rental units in Montclair, representing close to 50% of our community. I also would like for the extension that we've made the request for the extension of the rent freeze ordinance. For those just tuning in, the rent freeze ordinance is not the same as the rent control ordinance that was approved on April 7 of 2020. They, the opposing landlord owner group, waited a year to say anything. And at that time, they would say anything to try to reverse this, our approved rent control ordinance of April 7, 2020. We were public for a year, representing over 30 years of previous groups that were stomped out by the unconscionable. Please, public, residents, community of Montclair, do not fall for their propaganda. Talk to the public servants who are here to help you. We love you, Montclair. We would love to see you stay. To learn more about rent control, we encourage you to visit the Montclair Citizens for Rent Control. That website is montclairrentcontrol.org. You can also become a part of and be featured on the site by sharing your support and lending your voice for another who is not being heard. Reach out via the website. We post our meetings as well for Tune on Montclair Patch. We post Tune at the Council also on Montclair Patch. And we have videos that are posting to our YouTube channel. We would love to see you stay. Have a great night.
Thank you. Caller with the number starting 973424. It is your turn to comment. 973424. Please, for the record, state your name and do your best to keep your comments under 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor Spiller, Council, and staff. My name is Deirdre Malloy, Co-Chair, Montclair Housing Commission, Member, NAACP Housing Committee, and Chairperson of the Landlord Tenant Advisory Committee. I am calling in support of the importance of extending the rent freeze moratorium as well, while legal matters are addressed. It is likely the state executive orders will expand protections due to the pandemic that's been ongoing, as has been previously done. Equally important, the following comments I make are as chair of the Landlord Tenant Housing Advisory Committee and are to any real estate professionals in town who are advising landlords to evict renters by way of written notice that the landlord intends to live in the unit. I have been informed that there is at least one broker agent in town advising that instead of landlords taking the unit themselves, landlords can replace the former renter with a new renter and increase the rent on the new lease to escape the pending rent control ordinance or bypass the current rent freeze moratorium. A note of caution to landlords and real estate agents thinking this behavior is legal. Should an evicted renter from a single to three-family home learn their landlord or his or her immediate family, if proved, did not move into the unit after requiring a previous renter to vacate to occupy, the evicted renter may take legal recourse against the landlord and potentially the broker and the real estate agent if relisted at a higher price and rented by a non-family member. It is recommended that those who are not attorneys versed in landlord-tenant law steer clear from advising landlords and owners on matters they are not licensed to provide legal guidance on. With regard to the Landlord-Tenant Housing Advisory Committee, all inquiries and concerns can be emailed to landlord-tenant-housing-committee@gmail.com. Again, that's landlord-tenant-housing-committee@gmail.com. Thank you, everyone, and good night.
Thank you. Caller with the number starting 973-879. It is your turn to comment. 973-879, please. For the record, state your name and do your best to keep your comments under 3 minutes. Nine seven three 879. Nine seven three 879. Caller with the number starting 917-545. It is your turn to comment. 917-545. Please, for the record, state your name and do your best to keep your comments under 3 minutes.
My name is John Van Wagner. I'm calling to respond to Councilor Yacobelis' Facebook post in which he calls for an end to litigation in the matter of the school's reopening. I asked Councilor Yacobelis on what basis we should trust the process abetted by a mayor who occupies the second highest officer level position with the NJEA, the very special interest holding our children's future hostage to its demands. May I remind the council that the achievement gap in Montclair, an issue for the last 30 years, has become a chasm during this year of COVID lockdowns. The most vulnerable among us, children from economically deprived backgrounds, are being denied the most basic of civil rights, that of a quality education. While the many economically advantaged families in Montclair can weather the teachers' union stonewalling with only temporary inconvenience, the effect on impoverished families has been devastating and irreparable. Councilor Yacobelis, the teachers' unions and their appendages on the council have shown utter disregard for the fate of our underserved population. Why should we then stand down in the courts? Are we to take your word that the needs of the children will come first? Thank you.
Thank you. Caller with the number starting 862-224. It is your turn to comment. 862-224. Please, for the record, state your name and do your best to keep your comments under 3 minutes.
Yes, good evening. Martin Schwartz, former member of the Planning Board and Mayor's appointee to the Planning Board. I'm calling about line items 11 and 12 up for consideration this evening, which are significant changes to the township zoning code. Unfortunately, there was no hot link attached in the published agenda and the online agenda so that the public could even begin to look at the modifications as proposed, nor was there a link to what is described within the new language as an amended map of the zoning code. At the same time, within the proposed ordinance in section 2347-18, the standards for lot widths, which are a part of these amendments, is deleted. So there's no list of actually what is occurring, creating a kind of discombobulation, which anybody looking at this and yourselves who may even consider it will not be able to tell exactly what is going on where in the township. So I ask that you table this until such information is actually put forth so that both the public can review, and even once it is put forth, that you pass this back to the planning and zoning boards so that they can actually tell what is going on. I remind everyone that the last time there were significant zoning changes made, it was only discovered during an application for a potential lot line modification on Washington Street, the actual potential ramifications from overdevelopment that just this kind of zoning modification might incur. The township residents have clearly expressed either a no growth or low growth policy in terms of single family homes, and it's not clear until this is fully vetted and reviewed what the ramifications from this will be. The concern is that it will open the floodgates again for lot line splitting and significant increases of additional single-family homes, which, as counselors know, are not particularly beneficial for the township by adding additional new children into the school system, creating potential more tax deficiencies. So I ask that you not consider this until there's further review and one is able to actually see what's involved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before you move on there, Mr. Stafford, just a note to all watching too. Again, these items are discussion items, so they're not action items for the council meeting tonight. So anyone looking at that, these are discussion items. That's the purpose of tonight's meeting. They're not action items. They're to be discussed. Secondly, as a note, the zoning subcommittee, which is made up of planning board members and also Board of Adjustment members, are the ones who are making these recommendations to the council, right? That's where these came from. It is that subcommittee made up of, again, zoning board members, Board of Adjustment members, and planning board members who have reviewed and then are making these recommendations to the council, which is up for discussion tonight. Thank you, Mr. Stafford. Proceed. Thank you.
Of course. Caller with the number starting 201264. It is your turn to comment. 201264. Please do us the service of muting your listening device, as we can hear everything that's being said twice. 201264. It is your turn to comment. Please state your name for the record and do your best to keep your comments under 3 minutes. Please state your name for the record and do your best to keep your comments under 3 minutes. Please state your name for the record. Well, I'm going to exercise prerogative and ask that person to mute their listening device and do your best to call back. We'll try and get you in at the end of the queue. Caller with the number starting 917536. It's your turn to comment. 917536. Please state your name for the record and do your best to keep your comments under 3 minutes. Please also do us the service of muting your listening device because we can hear everything twice. Okay. Moving on. Caller with the number starting 862704. It is your turn to comment. 862704. Please state your name for the record and please do your best to keep your comments under 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Judith Mills, and I am in the 4th Ward, 10 Pine Street. I am calling concerning asking for an extension for the rent freeze and also concerning rent control. It's been about 2 years, 1 month since I moved to Montclair, and one of the main reasons I moved to Montclair is because of its diversity. But without rent control, then Montclair cannot claim diversity because people are having a hard time financially. There's a pandemic going on. Not only that, some people have fixed incomes and they're on disability. Some of the seniors want to age in place. They're on retirement funds. without rent control, it makes it very difficult for these people to be in this town. So I'm really asking for the council to really help push this rent control for Montclair. Thank you.
Thank you. Caller with the number starting 518-369. Is your turn to comment. 518-369. Please state your name for the record and do your best to keep your comments under 3 minutes.
Hi, this is Madeline Gale. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. Okay, great. As I said, it's Madeline Gale. I live in the 4th Ward. I'm calling to ask the council to please appeal the judge's decision to overturn the rent control ordinance and to ask you to please extend the rent freeze ordinance. As others have stated, the rent control ordinance was done transparently and freely. Rent control is desperately needed here and everywhere at all times, but especially at this time when so many people have lost their jobs and have little or no income and are suffering economically. It's needed in order to make housing affordable for all. Please understand that having no rent control is inhumane. Having no rent control is classist, racist, sexist, ageist, and ableist. Having no rent control hurts poor and working class people, as well as women, people of color, the elderly, and disabled people, all who generally have less income and resources to pay higher rent prices and increases. Rent control is very necessary and will help keep Montclair diverse and more equitable, and it will help keep people in their homes. Thus, it can save lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Caller with the number starting 973-903. It is your turn to comment. 973-903. Please do your best to keep your comments under 3 minutes, and for the record, state your name.
Stephen Plofker. I'm calling in opposition to an appeal of the judge's decision. It's surprising and alarming that so many people in Montclair don't want to let the voters in Montclair decide whether they want a rent control ordinance. Many landlords are not opposed to a rent control ordinance. Contrary to many tenant advocate statements, there's nothing reasonable about the ordinance that's been adopted by the town council. It is extreme compared to all of the ordinances in our competitive cities or competitive towns. There's such extreme provisions in the ordinance that will require many levels and expensive levels of administration. Many of the landlords are not opposed to reasonable rent control. We've been excluded from every level of discussion about the ordinance for over 12 months. It's time to hear our voices, to negotiate a reasonable ordinance for both sides, and to move on from this issue, not keep fighting in courts. And if the council disagrees, then at least allow the voters to decide. Thank you.
Thank you. Caller with the number starting 201-281. It is your turn to comment. 201-281. Please, for the record, state your name and do your best to keep your comments under 3 minutes.
Marcella Simaderis. Praise the Lord, everybody. I just want to take a moment and follow up with my concerns spoken at the February 16th meeting regarding a public servant employed by this town present in DC this past January 6th. I want everyone to be clear on what my position regarding what took place is. There was nothing peaceful about any of the events in DC. On that day, every type of hate towards Blacks that could be resurrected was resurrected, inclusive of nooses. The organization of these people was rooted in the thought that Black votes don't matter, and what we saw was an attempt to destroy democracy and secure a minority dictatorship. Just like calls for unity and reconciliation allowed the Klan to counter Reconstruction after slavery was abolished, attempting to approach current issues with a focus on reconciling their rights with their violence will only enable those that participated and supported the insurrection to thwart efforts of equality. I would also like to share my position as an NJEA member who has been under Vice President Spiller's leadership in response to Councilor Cummings' argument that the mayor's position with NJEA poses no conflict. In his comments, Councilman Cummings offered the mayor's Board of Education appointment as evidence. It is my opinion that this appointment only demonstrates who he values and his tendency to toe lines. I have concerns with Board Member Silverstein. First and foremost, I have an issue with the attack she led on those who stood up for Black children that were being constantly thrown into a closet at Bullock. The impact it appeared to have on her comfort, along with possible implications to her child's needs, demonstrated to me that she believes the white skin belonging to herself and her child is more valuable than the Black skin of the students that were suffering daily. Like usual, NJEA Vice President Spiller on localized issues was silent. However, what was more frustrating was his attempt last spring with me to deflect from his lack of a position on racist intern Superintendent Parker and his attempt to accredit the local teachers union for addressing the issue, while failing to acknowledge the only organization that did anything to address the racist actions carried out by Parker and the Board of Ed, Independent Black Parent Organization, NIBPA. So I don't know what you want to call it, conflict of interest, propensity to be complicit as he continues on his quest for more power so that he can aid in the maintenance of the status quo. I am, however, clear that progress is a result of choices that do not come without opposition, and that the real game changers are usually not recognized or given credit until they are long gone. Lastly, with regards to Councilor Cummings' comment regarding numbers needed in order to prompt a response, one doesn't need numbers if one has the truth. What is needed is the courage to stand up and do what is right, because it is so much more than lawn signs. This country was built by enslaved Africans, and it continues to capitalize off of Black bodies this very day because people in power benefit from it and allow it. And I'm not just talking about politicians, I'm talking about public servants like teachers and police officers. Thank you.
Thank you. Caller with the number starting 973747. It is your turn to comment. 973747. Please, for the record, state your name and do your best to keep your comments under 3 minutes.
Good evening, Council and Mayor Spiller. This is William Scott, co-chair of the Montclair Housing Commission and chair of the Montclair NAACP Housing Committee. Also a 71-year resident of the Township of Montclair, born and raised. I'm also a property owner in the Township of Montclair. I'm also a small business owner of rental property in the Township of Montclair. I'm currently, my son and his family is a resident of Montclair, and I have 2 grandchildren living in the Township of Montclair. And, from 4 generations of Scots in the Township of Montclair, we made an investment. And I've spent a lot of time around the issue with affordable housing, rent control. The first 2 speakers that mentioned the issue are completely incorrect. This has been an issue that has been discussed for over 40 years in this community, and as far as rent control is concerned. But first and foremost, I want to make sure it's understood. I support the appeal of the judge's decision. It was totally incorrect. And I also support the 90-day extension of the rent increase freeze. But I do take issue with one of the comments that one of the earlier speakers made, and he mentioned civil rights. I would invite him to the Montclair branch NAACP civil rights meetings that we have every month, so he can understand what civil rights means, housing rights mean, voter rights means in this township, and also in addition in this country. The petition for the Montclair property owners was totally misleading. They talked about increases in taxes that would affect that would affect all town properties, lower property values for all properties in Montclair, decreased affordable rents in the township of Montclair, decreased supply of housing, rental housing in the township of Montclair. That was their position from the very start. So they don't support rent control. They've said on a number of occasions that they're willing to talk about it. But when someone tells you what their position is initially, you listen to that position. So at this point in time, we need to move forward with the appeal. We will stand behind the council in the decision to move forward with the appeal. The residents of Montclair are prepared to support you, council, so don't be bullied by these property owners that are absolutely misinforming the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Caller with the number starting 973-330. It is your turn to comment. 973-330. Please, for the record, state your name and do your best to keep your comments under 3 minutes.
Good evening, Council. My name is Frank Rubacki. I'd like to speak to you on a quick range of issues. One, I would like a little elaboration tonight when you speak to the bill list about the unusual amount involved with this bill list. I believe it's over $16 million. The next thing I would like to ask for is a little bit more clarity and transparency with our government, specifically the Digital Meeting Act. It seems the zoning board and the planning board have passed different versions of their interpretation of the New Jersey statute. My pet peeve has always been the planning board's never had public comment. I understand the rationale, but I just think in the time of COVID, they might want to rethink that. The Environmental Commission, I know they report to you, but they're not very transparent. They're not very organized, and they could do a better job. It doesn't take a lot of effort to put out an agenda like you guys do the week before. Their bylaws said they only have to put it out 24 hours in advance, and you have to subscribe to Zoom to attend their meetings. So, they're not very useful as far as environmentalism is concerned. I'm a little bit concerned with the comment earlier that there are 15,000 rental units in the township of Montclair. That means that our population has probably grown to about 60,000 people, and that I can only assume the difference is Councilor Hurlock could probably confirm between what the actual is and that 15,000 is. The first ward now has 4,000 more affordable housing units, which makes it the number one ward in the township by my calculation, if that 15,000 is correct. But anyway, I don't know where they got that number, but there's been a lot of bad numbers when it comes to rent control. I'm for it, but I'm disappointed the way you've limited the scope of it, especially when it comes to code compliance. So I'd like you to pass a ordinance that has code compliance checks every time an apartment in Montclair turns over. But we're going to be fair about these things. And I would like finally to remind you guys to do something about the reflow ordinance as far as worker safety and be a little bit more specific with our laws about ear, eye, and respiratory protection for the workers. I mean, everybody and their brother pretty much came in and gave every reason why we should pass it, and then we conveniently forgot all those reasons when we came around to protecting the workers who are immediately affected, which is, I think it's a little bit hypocritical of Montclair. Not unusual, but very hypocritical. Thank you very much for your time. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Mayor, through you, to Mr. Rubacki's point or inquiry with respect to the bills list is inordinately high. The bills list tonight would be for $16,411,366 and change. Of that, $15,782,530 are periodic intermittent payments. To the County of Essex, it's the township's first quarter taxes of $9.7+ million. To the Montclair Board of Education, it's the standard levy of $5 million. To the State Health Benefits Fund for health benefits, it is $621,000. And to the Montclair Public Library, its first appropriation of the year for $420,000, more than $420,000. Again, that totals $15,782,530, leaving $628,836 for payment of actual township bills. So again, of that $16,411,366, $628,836 are expenses, operating expenses, and capital expenses of the township.
Thank you.
Certainly. Caller starting with the number starting 201874. It is your turn to comment. 201874. Please, for the record, state your name and do your best to keep your comments under 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Louisa Hackett, and I'm a homeowner in Montclair in support of rent control. I'm also a member of the Homeowners Committee of the Tenants Organization of Montclair. I want to state the obvious, that Montclair would not be fighting in court if the landlords had accepted the moderate rent control law that was passed by our democratically elected town council. So I urge the council to appeal the recent ruling. I think this is particularly important now that we are in the middle of a pandemic, and I actually find it shocking in the middle of a pandemic when there's so much economic hardship that a group of landlords are fighting rent control. And lastly, I also want to support the extension of the rent freeze. Thank you.
Thank you. Caller with the number starting 973879. It is your turn to comment. 973879. Please, for the record, state your name and do your best to keep your comments under 3 minutes.
Hey, this is Robert Squires. I don't think anyone's really that up in arms against instituting rent control with the 2.5% increases or the 4% yearly increase. I think the issue is the vacancy decontrol. So if there's a tenant that's been there for X amount of years, paying $900 a month, and they leave, you know, to be able to only raise it 10% of previous rent, artificially keeps values low. Overnight, it drops property values in town. And why are people moving to Montclair? Because it's on the up and up. And I just feel like this would halt a lot of things. So again, the rental increases, I don't think anyone really has an issue with. It's the vacancy decontrol, which kind of ties the arms of everyone. You know, landlords are not going to be making repairs to the units, and especially repairs to the buildings. If you look at other towns like Union City or even New York City, volume has stopped. Transaction volume has stopped. So I don't really think it protects anyone. Just this vacancy decontrol, it should be left up to market. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Caller with the number starting 917536. It is your turn to comment. 917536. Please do us the service of turning your listening device to mute and state your name for the record, and do your best to keep your comments under 3 minutes.
Good evening. This is June Regner. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to support the extension of the rent increase freeze. I also would like to request that the town is more transparent when you're talking about changes to the zoning code and provide hot links. When you put on your agenda, section 237, I think that's over 50 pages long. It would be very helpful for citizens who would like to be informed if you would be more specific. In January, you may remember that I asked you what you were doing, similar to other municipalities, to make sure that municipal employees were not part of the January 6th Capitol attacks in Washington, D.C. You haven't responded. However, Mayor Spiller, you are having a town hall to discuss the problems of white supremacy to do with stickers. Can you please address real problems, given that another caller did recognize that there was a municipal employee in Washington, D.C. at the rally on January 6th? Please take this seriously. The other request I have is that the town should to form a partnership with Mountainside so you can speedily vaccinate teachers immediately on March 15th when they become appropriate to be vaccinated. This was a very successful program in New York City when the UFT paired with the city government. It is very important that Montclair's teachers get vaccinated quickly. It is very important that teachers get back to school. As Mayor Spiller ran as part of his platform was that he would be able to create these kind of partnerships, the time has come for you to actually make good on that promise. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you. Caller with the number starting 973-337. It is your turn to comment. 973-337. Please, for the record, state your name and do your best to keep your comments under 3 minutes.
Good evening. This is Matt Horrigan, and I'm calling with a couple comments on the rent control ordinance. I hear the same group of people calling into the council meetings again and again, and I think it's a relatively small group. I'd like to point out that Judge Beecham certified over 1,200 signatures of the 1,700 that were submitted from Montclair residents. 1,200 said they want to see the rent control ordinance be put to a town vote. They didn't say they were for it necessarily or against it, but rather they just want to see it put to a town vote. 1,200 people in town is a rather large number, and I don't think it should be ignored. The town and council should not appeal and fight any longer and let it go to a town vote. Allow the residents of Montclair to have their say and vote on the ordinance. Thank you, and have a great night.
Thank you. Caller with the number starting 973-903. It is your turn to comment. Please, for the record, state your name and do your best to keep your comments under 3 minutes. Nine seven three 903. Caller with the number starting 862202. It is your turn to comment. 862202. Please, for the record, state your name and do your best to keep your comments under 3 minutes. Eight 862202, are you there? Caller with the number starting 469387. It is your turn to comment. 469387, please state your name for the record and do your best to keep your comments under 3 minutes. Caller 469387. Caller with the number starting 973747. It is your turn to comment. 973747. Please, for the record, state your name and do your best to keep your comments under 3 minutes.
Yes, this is William Scott. I was just listening to the call again via my phone, but I'll take this opportunity to also inform the public that the rent control conversation has been going on in the township of Montclair for many years. Back in 2017, I introduced and supported and managed a survey of rent control in the township of Montclair. 3 out of 4 residents, about 75% of the people that responded to the survey, did. There was about a 25% that was negative in regards to the rent control ordinance. In 2018, we had a universal rent control forum at the Charles Bullock School. There were several property owners at that meeting. We had a panel that was very representative of the concerns about the need for rent control in the township of Montclair. So for individuals who said that this was done behind the scenes or under the table, this property owners organization is completely misinforming the public. There were council members at various meetings that we had with the clergy. There was meetings that we had in various houses of worship. The property owners, if they wanted to come to the table, they should have come to the table from the very outset. But as I mentioned, this is a 40-year struggle, and we are prepared to stand behind the council moving this ordinance forward. And if an appeal is necessary, then that's absolutely what needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you. Caller with the number starting 973879. It is your turn to comment. 973879. Please state your name for the record and do your best to keep your comments under 3 minutes. 973879. Caller with the number starting 973868. It is your turn to comment. 973868. Please
Hello?
state your name for the record.
Hello?
And do your best to keep your comments
Yes.
under 3 minutes.
Yes, good evening. This is Brenda Agwar. I am the first secretary of the Tenant Advocacy Group. I wanted to say that just a couple points, and I'll be brief. Good evening once again to the council and mayor. That first point, we do need rent control. And as Mr. Scott said, this has been going on for a couple of years. I'm quite sure that the Montclair Properties Association was aware of the meetings. And at the last meeting, the beginning of March last year, I met a gentleman from New York who wanted to hear what was going on. And he said that the percentage of the increase he thought was extremely high, and he thought it should have been under 2%. Now, if we're going to talk about equity, and we're going to talk about whether or not it's the diversity in this town, I think that it's finally time to take a look at that. Montclair should not just be for the wealthy. It should be for all, because we are one of the most diverse towns, actually, not in the state, but in the nation. So I want to make that part clear. And also, I am in support of the appeal to the higher court from the judge's order. I think we need to work on that. I also would like the extension of the rent freeze. And if I may say one other thing, to just consider what it is that's really important to the lives of the people here in this township during the time of COVID. And some people have lost their jobs. I know we have several food pantries in this township, and, you know, people need help. I think that needs to be considered. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Caller with the number starting 469387. It is your turn to comment. 469387. Please state your name for the record and do your best to keep your comments under 3 minutes. Four 469387. Caller with the number starting 862202. It is your turn to comment. Please state your name for the record and do your best to keep your comments under 3 minutes. 862202.
Greetings. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. We can hear you.
Hello. Can you? All right. My name is Pulia Sweat. Good evening to you all. I'm here this evening because I want to definitely express my support for you guys moving forward with the appeal. And I'm in support of the 90-day rent, the freeze. So I want to express my support on that. Additionally, as a 10-year-long civil rights commissioner, which I recently resigned some months ago, and as a native born and raised in this town, and the president of a Black parent organization that seeks to eradicate racism with an education, I'm deeply concerned about our climate in town. I'm clear that Mayor Spiller is having a meeting of some sort on white supremacy. In 2014, I attended a town council meeting and brought to the council's attention that there was an educator who said she needed a slave. I was responded to with silence. Less than a year ago, we had an interim superintendent in this town that said he's never denied saying that he doesn't have a problem with teachers being racist as long as it doesn't disrupt instruction. Our Black population is leaving Montclair. Feels like we're even being pushed out of Montclair. Those of us who have invested in this town, even buried our parents in this town, raised our children in this town, we need something secure, how I see other towns doing when it comes to supporting their residents, to make sure that we can remain in the place that we have paid into for so long. Is deeply disturbing. So I just wanted to connect with you all tonight on that. And of course, what is still on my mind is the piece that I keep bringing up when I come here, whether or not there is an authentic investigation into the firefighter who seems as though he may have participated in the insurrection. It is clear that he was in D.C. on January 6th. We do want to know that we are in a type of town that is protecting us from people who would participate in a riot at the Capitol. So we just need some clarity. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Caller with the number starting 973-634. It is your turn to comment. 973-634, please. Mute your listening device, state your name for the record, and do your best to keep your comments under 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Steve. I'm concerned about some of the discussion that's gone on about the riot on January 6th. Yes, as we all saw in the videos, there was violent actions that occurred at the top of the steps and inside the Capitol building. However, it's my understanding there were about 1 million plus people there. Obviously, there were not 1 million plus people at the top of the steps within the Capitol building. The vast majority of the people that were in Washington, D.C. that day were there to peacefully protest what they thought was a wrong. People may disagree with that. It's not right to say that that wrong is a form of extremism. It's just an opinion. And I think that we should tone it down a little bit. I don't know this person that supposedly was down in Washington, D.C. I only know that there was over 1 million people there from what I've heard. And I think that we should consider that the enormous chances that he was not doing anything violent that day, and he has the right to peacefully protest and to state his mind, whatever it might be. Okay, and now as for rent control, a very minor thing. I'd rather not come down on rent control. However, it is the high taxes in Montclair that is leading to the higher rent. That's my opinion. Thank you very much. Bye.
Mayor, Mr. Mayor and manager, can I just say something? The gentleman's got this million quote 3 times about people. It was only 25,000 people there at the most, but 1 million is not who was there. And it wasn't just a few people that went up on the steps. There were thousands of people who went into the Capitol and tried to kill the vice president, the Speaker of the House, any Congress people that they could get a hold of, both Republican and Democrat. They had such violent intentions, hurting police, beating police, killing police. It's just a horrible thing that happened. I just have to speak out to it over and over. I teach political science. I've never seen anything like this in my 50 years teaching and being in government and politics. Nobody's ever done anything like this. And I hold the former president completely responsible. And I hold groups like this, QAnon, Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, crazy right-wing groups responsible for doing this. People are perpetuating myths about 1 million people being there and only a few people went up on the steps. This is the worst thing I've ever seen after I've seen and witnessed as mayor 9/11. And we all, remember that we had World War I, World War II, Vietnam War, the Civil War. But for a group of people who are upset about an election result to go up, I understand they think the election was stolen. Election was not stolen. Election was stolen 4 years before. The election was stolen in 2000. Nobody did that. The party that lost accepted the election results. So just remember, there wasn't 1 million people. It wasn't a few. It was certain groups that are actually threatening us all over the country, again, with this type of violence. I've been personally threatened with violence. And I think that people who speak out about this should be paid attention to, Republican and Democrat. And I've made an appeal for Republicans and Democrats to work together. Independents, Republicans, Democrats, get the president's COVID relief bill passed. Let's do something that helps everybody. Talking about taxes cause rent to go up. Taxes cause everybody to have problems. You know why the taxes go up? Because the federal government doesn't fund the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act that it should have funded 40 years ago. That's why our taxes go up, because the school costs go up, because the federal government is wasting money on trips to Mars and having wars all over the place. Hopefully, President Biden and Vice President Harris are going to refocus us on health care, education. And by the way, whoever talked about teachers, yes, the president specifically said today, teachers should be the next group that get the vaccine this March. The governor's now said it. I've been saying this for months. Teachers have to be vaccinated to go into those schools. I'm teaching a 30-student class in a large classroom. Most of my students were there today for a class again, but they're also concerned. They want to make sure their teacher is safe. They want to make sure that they're safe. They want to make sure teachers are vaccinated. Finally, let's get teachers vaccinated, and let's spend the money that we waste on too many extraneous, crazy things on ventilation in our schools. Refocus our money on infrastructure. Let's get our schools repaired. Let's get ventilation. Windows don't even open in 100-year-old schools. This is ridiculous. This country can do what we need to do. So I'm just making my appeal right now. Understand what happened in Washington. And let's focus together, Republicans, good Democrats, good independents, on making this country what Lincoln wanted it to be, what Teddy Roosevelt wanted it to be, what Dwight D. Eisenhower wanted it to be, what John F. Kennedy wanted it to be. Let's work together. Thank you. I'm sorry, Mayor. I had to just say that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mayor, there's no one else in the queue.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Stafford. With that, I will close public comment at this time. To just address some of the pieces that were there, I will say this, first and foremost, excuse me, as we've done repeatedly throughout this pandemic with the rent freeze, starting with the previous council, even rolled over into this council, we have always passed the rent freeze and said we will extend it as long as necessary to move through this pandemic. That happened the last time this council, very council, moved forward with such an action, and it still holds true today. So certainly don't want to keep everyone waiting on that one, unless the will of this body changes, which I doubt from the statements that we all made at the last time we put this forward and extended it. We will once again extend the rent freeze to ensure that during this pandemic, no one is subjected to that challenge right now. So please note that we've done that every time it's about to expire. We go on and extend it. We have noted that the reason we do it with a hard date specific as guidance from our attorney, it allows us more protections to be able to enforce for our renters, et cetera. So that's why we will continue to do so in that manner, and we will extend it as needed to move through this pandemic. And by the way, we all hope this pandemic ends sooner than later, but if needed, we will extend it again, as needed again to get through this and to help everyone get through this. So just want to note that so people aren't kind of, waiting to kind of know where we are on that one. Certainly with the rent control ordinance, our attorney can speak to it a little bit, but, the back and forth with the judge, some interesting decisions, we'll just say, all along the way. But the bottom line, I think, as we've heard from many residents here today, there is a desire to ensure that Montclair remains affordable, remains diverse. Many individuals from this council that you see in front of you were instrumental in passing a well-balanced rent control ordinance. And then every council member you see here has been instrumental in supporting that action and ensuring that our residents are taken care of. Certainly, we will continue to have discussions always as to what our options are, but I know that certainly I can say that I am, and I am sure many of my colleagues, if not all, committed to continuing to support rent control, the balanced measure that was passed, defending it as whatever means necessary to defend it, to ensure that there is protection. I can certainly say if we're listening to residents call in who are just trying for some moderate protection against uncontrolled rent increases versus others calling in who want to be able to raise rents to whatever amount, that's honestly kind of a no-brainer decision, right? We're going to come down on the side of residents and making sure that they have the protections that they deserve. And absolutely, we should be one of the towns that has that in place as well. So that commitment you certainly will see from me, and we will continue in those efforts. Mr. Stafford, before we move into some of the other just items, we have one action item which is on our bill list, and then some discussion items. But because knowing people are listening at the beginning, I know one of the other issues, it wasn't raised, right here during public comment, but I know that certainly in my weekly updates, I know my council colleagues have been doing their best to make sure the information gets out there. Can you briefly speak to the current status of recycling in town, why the change was made, what the thinking is as to why not alternating, why just picking up regular garbage, and then of course the hopeful goal of this and to try and get crews back to work, and of course lastly exploring other options. If any were looked at to see what other options exist, we know that they were because we've done our homework on this here. But if you can speak to a little of that, Mr. Stafford, I wanted you to hit that before we lost anyone tuning out here with their other business, just so we again use another vehicle, another avenue to make sure the information gets out as widely and broadly as possible, if you will. Thank you, sir.
Certainly. Unfortunately, after 11 and a half months of the circumstances caused by the pandemic and notwithstanding significant prophylactic measures in the form of sanitizing vehicles, common touch surfaces, distribution and use of personal protective equipment, as well as social distance measures being implemented, we have in various departments throughout town over the course of the 11 and a half months suffered some employees being infected with the COVID-19 illness, as well as having employees for contact with fellow employees, but also contact with family members and friends and what have you, be required to engage in contact tracing and quarantining. Those who test positive, of course, engage in mandatory isolation. That became the case in the Department of Community Services last week, at the end of the previous week and the beginning of last week. So when it became evident that we were suffering significant loss in personnel because of both testing positive and required contact tracing, we immediately started planning for sufficient redundancy. As you mentioned, that included seeking quotes from private recycling haulers to do the work should we need it. It also included looking at other neighboring municipalities to see if any could help us with respect to our recycling collection. And parenthetically, you should know that none of the neighboring municipalities in this area actually do in-house recycling and curbside collection. They all farm it out to private firms. So that was not a viable option. We also analyzed alternatives to suspension. For instance, alternating trash pickup with recycling. So in other words, instead of doing 2 trash pickups during the week, we analyzed thoroughly doing 1 trash pickup during the week. Candidly, that is an untenable situation simply because of this. A single load trash pickup, meaning twice a week in the section, requires for each pickup 5 trucks and 15 employees, and it takes approximately 6 hours to conduct the pickup. A double load trash pickup, so in other words, combining the 2 into 1 a week, conducted once a week, requires for each pickup at least 6 or 7 trucks and 18 to 21 employees, depending on the volume of the trash to be picked up, and takes approximately 10 to 12 hours each pickup to conduct. Given the depletion, the severe depletion of manpower, given COVID-19, it was determined that we just do not have enough personnel to do once a week trash pickup. And if that were implemented, the load would be too taxing in and of itself. In addition to accomplishing, which would of course be the goal, weekly recycling pickup in the 4 sections, which of course would require, for all intents and purposes, with the same reduced number of personnel, collecting 4 sections of recycling that is normally done in 4 days in 2 or 3 days. Again, we just didn't have the personnel to do that. We still do not have the personnel to do that. And I mentioned before, we sought quotes from at least 4 private recycling companies, and 3, given their circumstances and the impact of COVID-19 on their personnel, 3 of the 4 declined to even provide a quote. The one remaining private company did provide a quote. However, the quote was astronomical and was not given serious consideration, that number being well into the 6 figures for a 4-week period. So at that point, given the severity of the personnel implications, we made the decision to suspend temporarily curbside recycling. However, of course, the recycling drop-off at the DCS yard is available on Saturdays and Wednesdays from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Now, we hope, given that this is a moving target because of the individuals involved and the required isolation and the required quarantine, depending on if positive for your contact tracing, we hope that personnel are able to return to work as promptly as possible. However, I say it's a moving target because the illness impacts people differently. Some people are back up and walking and working quickly. Other people are not. You hear, I'm sure you've heard stories of long haulers on the news who are impacted for months. We don't think, we hope that that's going to be the case here. We hope that people are good people who have been working tirelessly every day since March of 2020, return to work promptly. This is not something that we took lightly, the suspension. It's not something that we were not prepared for. However, it is sadly a necessity in what has been a long list of sad necessities caused by COVID-19.
Mayor, can I say something?
Please.
So first of all, I want to thank you, Mrs. Stafford. I, completely support your decision making in this really, really difficult situation. What I want to say to residents is I think this is a good opportunity to revisit recycling best practices, right? So just to kind of remember a couple key things that I think are going to be really important in this time. Number one, cleaning out your recyclables. You want to make sure there isn't food residue that's sitting in bins for several weeks, because you can have bacterial growth, which will become a health issue. Number two, remembering that we only pick up recycling with plastics numbers 1, 2, and 5. So if it's not labeled 1, 2, or 5, it should not be in your recycling bin anyway. It should go in your trash bin. And remembering to collapse and flatten cardboard. So that will help you in terms of saving in space, making sure that you're preventing any kind of bacterial buildup, and also just re-educating yourselves on the type of recycling that we actually do here in Montclair. And it's much more nuanced than that in terms of the other things that we do in terms of batteries and all those other things So definitely want to encourage everybody to go to our website and refamiliarize yourselves with what the rules are. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so as noted, we all hope that we can move through this as rapidly as possible. And Mr. Stafford, again, we also, certainly commend the actions taken, and rapidly so, because we don't want and did not want this to impact our regular, garbage pickup, which would be very troubling as well. So appreciate those actions, swift actions. With that, we do have an item. So for action, Councilwoman Schlager, I'm going to turn it over to you, please.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the bill list for this evening, whereas invoices against the Township of Montclair in favor of the following persons for the amount set opposite their respective names have been received, duly audited, and found correct. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the Township of Montclair and the County of Essex that said invoices be and they are hereby ordered paid, and that checks be drawn by the Finance Department to the order of such persons for the amounts respectively and hereinafter stated on the schedule attached hereto and made a part hereof. This bill list is dated March 2nd, 2021 for the amount of $16,411,366.62. And I so move.
Second.
Questions, concerns, or comments?
I have a couple of questions.
Please.
Okay, thank you. On page 6, there was a check for Griffin Allied Trucking for gasoline delivery for $9,000. What gas is that for? Do we have a gas pump, like a gas station pump?
Yes, ma'am, we do. We fill our fleet at the DCS yard with both gasoline and diesel.
Okay. Oh, so we actually have like a pump. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. We have both for gas and diesel.
Okay. Oh, I've been there, but I've never seen the pump. Okay. And my other question was page 12 at the bottom for $15,000. Vintra, and it says Vintra maintenance renewal. I was wondering what Vintra was.
That's the company that provides service for the cameras that are throughout town that we monitor for illegal and nefarious activity.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much, Mr. Stafford.
Any other? Okay, I see Councilman Yacobelis.
Yeah, and I apologize, Mr. Stafford, because normally I'm able to type up an email, and I will not make it as many as I normally ask you. Page 3, CDW government, the third item down there, PO 1907367, and the one immediately following, 42,000 and 15,000 respectively. Just what that is.
The $42,000 were for Cisco switches. That is for the running of our network, and the renewal right underneath it is the voice over internet that we have on our phone system.
Thank you. And page 5, the GTBM charge for $10,862.
Gold type business machine is InfoCop, which most police departments in the state use for the writing of e-tickets.
Thank you. And then, sorry, just one more, page 13, VSP for $1,681.
That's the township plan for employee benefits.
Thank you. You win Jeopardy.
You got that right.
Any other questions, concerns, comments? Seeing no hands going up, it's been moved and seconded. Madam Clerk, if you please call the roll.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hurlock?
Yes.
Councilperson Abrams?
Yes.
Councilor Russo?
Yes.
Councilor Schlager?
Yes.
Councilor Yacobelis?
Yes.
Mayor Spiller?
Yes. Thank you. Next, moving to some of the discussion items. Again, agenda flexibility. Mr. Stafford, can you start to move through our discussion items, please?
Certainly. Regarding item number 1, applicants for development projects are required to deposit funds in escrow. The projects listed on Schedule A have been determined to be substantially complete. All relevant fees have been satisfied, and there appears to be no further basis to retain the escrow deposits listed thereon. This resolution would authorize their release and would direct the township's chief financial officer to issue checks for same to the applicable developers. Items 2 through 6 inclusive would be resolutions that would authorize the placement of municipal liens on certain and specific properties in town. More particularly, these liens are the result of the township's effort to manage its vacant properties. Each lien consists of the actual cost for a contractor to perform the work listed at the specific property, a charge for the township's special counsel to prepare the lien, and an administrative service fee for the township's work in handling the matter. Each resolution has attached to it a certification regarding the work performed and the lien specifics. All work relevant to these 5 liens was performed for snow, slush, and/or ice removal on or about December 18 of 2020. Items number 7 and 8 both involve requests to amend the not to exceed amounts of previously authorized professional service agreement for special tax counsel services. By resolution R2218 and R2219, this governing body authorized professional services agreements with the law firms of Eric M. Bernstein and Associates and DeFrancesco, Bateman, Coley, Yosman, Kunzman, Davis, Lehrer, and Flaum. Each resolution based upon the at the time reasonably anticipated number of real estate tax appeals and other New Jersey tax court matters included a not to exceed amount of $25,000. Given though the increased number of real estate tax appeals and other tax court matters, that not to exceed number for each will not be sufficient for each firm. Accordingly, recommendation is made to, and these resolutions would amend each not to exceed amount by $55,000, thus setting each not to exceed amount at $80,000 for calendar year 2021.
Mr. Mayor, can I just ask the manager a question? Or maybe it's the town attorney?
Please go ahead.
These law firms that we hire, that cost us quite a bit of money. I know we have to hire outside counsel to deal with a lot of this, but sometimes the law firms are not anywhere near our town, or they seem to be, I don't know, I see names of a former governor, a former state senator. I see all these political people. I don't know. Who decides on these firms?
May I address that? Or would you like to? Oh, well, first of all, it's really myself and the assessor. Ultimately, the council decides on them because you give them the contracts, and by resolution, you both authorize their contracts and your payments. So this is a highly specialized area. As you know, all of the, well, maybe you don't know, all of the county tax appeals are handled in-house, that is by me, and there's no additional charge to the town for those. And we usually get anywhere from 100 to sometimes one of my years was 1,400. So it can be a wide variety. The tax court appeals, however, are a constant, mostly the commercial appeals, and the number sort of stays equal over the years and grows during certain periods of time. In this case, so these firms are picked because these attorneys who are with those firms, and they tend to move around, the attorneys with those firms are really excellent at their work, and they've been doing our cases, which are multi-year cases for quite a while. If you want to change firms, it's a major issue to actually switch cases over. But anyway, I'm sorry I've given you a long-winded answer, but I mean, this is, I realize it's a lot of money. So you should know how we go about.
Yeah, my only point is that somebody asked me recently, a prominent resident in town asked me recently about why couldn't somebody local, a local Hispanic attorney who could do tax appeals, why couldn't we hire him? I don't know who it was, again, who they're suggesting. I said, I don't know. In other words, they think that we have local people and minority people and women and African-American and Hispanic people that could be engaged in some of this work and make a living, you know, rather than these wealthy, politically connected firms from all over the state getting all kinds of business from Montclair. So that's all. Somebody asked me, and that's why I'm asking you. I understand your answer, and I understand if we've stuck with people because we've had them for years, then we're stuck. But there's got to be a way that we don't advertise or anything. We don't afford opportunities for minorities and women. And, you know, this is what I'm concerned about.
Well, that's not true exactly. We do put out a request for proposals every few years, and I think there was one put out. Our manager, was it last year or?
I believe it was last year, Ira, absolutely.
Yeah, we do advertise for these positions, and we do review what we get. I mean, the tax court work is generally speaking, you don't have small, like individual firm lawyers or small firms doing this, because it requires a lot of coverage in the court all the time, year after year. In any case, you know, the firms that we do hire do have, I mean, I could check it out, but they typically have a lot of different lawyers, of different diverse.
No, I hope so. Just see a couple of big political names, you know, it's all. All right, that's
I can
my
tell you,
point.
politics doesn't play
I
any.
just want to make I'm on a roll tonight, even though I have my tooth pulled. The thing is, when we got openings in town government, let's try to get more women. Let's try to get more African Americans. Let's try to get more Latinos. We've got to get people to diversify our workforce and who we purchase from and all. You know, we've got Women's History Month now, Black History Month last month. Let's make it a reality, okay? I always have an ad in the NAACP or the Martin Luther King breakfast that says, to honor Dr. King, let's make the dream a reality. It's still not a reality, okay? That we're not doing enough to make it diverse hiring and diverse staffing and diverse purchasing. These are things I've seen for 21 years, folks, okay? 21 years. And when I became mayor, I tried to diversify. I put one African-American, Puerto Rican guy on the planning board when they were all white men from Upper Montclair. Planning board was all white men from Upper Montclair. I put one guy on, everybody screaming. Why did you put him on? Well, he was Puerto Rican and black. And that's not the reason I put him on, but he was a qualified attorney who went on the planning board. Then I got objections from people. And then I got defeated for mayor, of course. All right. That's all. I said my piece. Thank you.
Item number 9, pursuant to Resolution R18-250, authorizing competitive contracting, the township issued a request for proposals for tax court appraisal services and tax assessment inspection services, otherwise known as added assessment inspections. The township received 2 submissions that were analyzed and evaluated. Based upon that analysis, recommendation is made to, and this resolution would award a contract for tax court appraisal services and tax assessment inspection services to Hendricks Appraisal Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $115,000 pursuant to the terms and conditions of the request for proposal and the terms set forth in the submitted proposal. Item number 10, the law firm of Weissman and Mintz, LLC, given its expertise in election-related litigation, was retained on an emergent basis to provide legal representation for the former deputy township clerk in her official capacity in connection with the matter McNeil versus Way, docketed as ESX-L-3732-20. It should be noted that the law department could not represent the deputy township clerk because, among other reasons, one of the plaintiffs in the matter was at the time a governing body member. The litigation having concluded, the firm has submitted invoices for said representation totaling $6,684.18 that are due and owing, and this resolution would authorize payment of same to the firm. Item number 11 would be an ordinance recommended by the Planning Boards and Board of Adjustments Zoning Subcommittee that would make changes to the Township Code's zoning ordinance to implement recommendations in the Unified Land Use and Circulation Plan and the 2019 Annual Report from the Zoning Board of Adjustment. These changes were evaluated by the Economic Development Committee, which recommended that same be adopted by the full governing body. Item number 12 would be an ordinance recommended by the Planning Boards and Board of Adjustments Zoning Subcommittee and the Housing Commission that would make changes to the Township Code's land use ordinances to ensure that affordable units are comparable to market units. The intent is to clarify language regarding design and construction of affordable units to ensure that they are comparable in size and quality to the market units. Also, the cash in lieu contribution to the Housing Trust Fund would be increased to reflect current building and construction costs. Likewise, the changes were evaluated by the Economic Development Committee, which recommended that same be adopted by the full governing body. Mayor, that's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Next, again, with the agenda with flexibility, I'd like to ask our Councilwoman Lloyd Price Abrams. We do have a proclamation which was put forward. Would you mind reading that for us, please, and introducing it? Thank you,
Mayor. Pleased to do so. A proclamation declaring March 10th, 2021 as Registered Dietitian Nutritionist Day. Whereas registered dietitian nutritionists are the food and nutrition experts who can translate the science of nutrition into practical solutions for healthy living, and whereas registered dietitian nutritionists have earned degrees in nutrition, dietetics, public health, or a related field from well-respected accredited colleges and universities, completed an internship and passed an examination, and whereas registered dietitian nutritionists use their nutrition expertise to help individuals make unique, positive lifestyle changes, and whereas registered dietitian nutritionists work throughout the community in hospitals, schools, public health clinics, nursing homes, fitness centers, food management, food industry, universities, research, and private practice, and whereas registered dietitian nutritionists are advocates for advancing the nutritional status of health of their patients, clients, and communities in America and around the world. And whereas the Township of Montclair is fortunate to have registered dietitian nutritionists who serve as valuable resources within the community, including 5 registered dietitians at Mountainside Hospital, all of whom received their Bachelor of Science degrees in nutrition science from Montclair State University. Now, therefore, the Mayor and Council of the Township of Montclair do hereby proclaim Wednesday, March 10th, 2021, Registered Dietitian Nutritionist Day in the Township of Montclair, and encourage all citizens to recognize the contributions of registered dietitian nutritionists and express appreciation for their commitment to promoting science-based nutrition in the hope of achieving optimum health for both today and tomorrow. And with that, I so move.
Second, I certainly note that the dietitians at Mountainside will be thrilled that we're able to do this tonight. So thank you, Councilwoman. Certainly not easy to say 5 times in a row, though, I will note. So I appreciate you reading that. Not so easy there. So thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, thank you very much. That passes. Appreciated. Mr. Stafford, before we move on, I know we do have an executive session item, allow us to go around the horn before we do that. So just everyone prepare, what you'd like to say there. I will just also note, given one of the questions that we had during public comment, if you could just ask Ms. Talley to be available for items 11 and 12 when they are to be discussed for action, that would be helpful. So we make sure all questions can be addressed as appropriate. All right.
Shall do.
Excellent. Thank you very much, sir. Much appreciated. Okay, Councilman Yacobelis.
Just to clarify, so for questions for item 12 or just comments, should we wait until 2 weeks from tonight, or do you want to have the discussion tonight?
Well, as you just heard me say, I've just asked that we have Janice jump on at the next meeting. If it's something you'd like to get her expertise on, I would say wait. If you think it's something Mr. Stafford would be able to address, although he, probably not as deep on the issues, but it's certainly appropriate either way.
I think just process-wise, just to get us to a place where we can vote on it, just, for item 12, just to flag, because we did recommend this out of committee in terms of the EDC, but one thing did change. It was the insertion of, in parentheses, from the exterior and the definition under design and construction of affordable units. I just don't know the origin of that addition. That wasn't part of the discussion in the EDC meeting. And a member of the zoning subcommittee also reached out separately to dispute that $178,000 number. So I just think we need to study that number more carefully. And I made a recommendation that we have a third party do an analysis and make a recommendation as well. So I'm not saying I will not support this. I just want to understand that first language piece and where that originated from. And then in terms of the number piece, I think there's just a little bit more discussion that needs to happen. And if we can have that over the next 2 weeks, we can make edits and then take action on it sooner than later. That was really all I wanted to say.
Great, thank you very much. And Mr. Stafford, you can relay it to Janice as well, as she prepares for next week's conversation.
Certainly, will do.
Look at that. Okay. All right. Next, let's go around for any comments. Mr. Stafford, I'll start with you.
Thank you, Mayor. Sadly, I have to relay that as of this evening, the official reports are that the confirmed number of COVID cases in Montclair is 1,928, and that number includes 66 individuals who did not survive the illness. I'd like to mention again that the Montclair YMCA and MedRite have partnered to offer COVID-19 testing at the WISE 25 Park Street location through April 30th. Testing will be available Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Masks, of course, are required. MedRite staff will collect patient information on site. Patients must bring a health insurance card and a photo ID. Patients receive rapid test results within an hour and PCR lab tests within 24 to 72 hours after reaching the lab. All testing is at no cost to the patient and covered by insurance. For more information on testing, please contact MedRite at info@onsitecovid19testing.com. For questions directed to the YMCA of Montclair, please contact Lisa Kievit, Senior Membership Director, at 973-559-9281, or email lkievit@montclairymca.org. Upcoming Essex County COVID-19 testing locations and dates include Thursday, March 4, from 3:30 to 6:30 p.m. at the Essex County Department of Public Works, located at 99 West Bradford Avenue in Cedar Grove, and Saturday, March 6, from 8 a.m. to noon, located at the Essex County South Mountain Recreation Complex's commuter parking deck, which is at 560 Northfield Avenue in West Orange. 800 tests are available by appointment at each testing event. Essex County residents aged 8 years and older with or without symptoms are encouraged to get tested. Residents are encouraged to get retested if they have taken a swab or saliva test 14 days ago or more and received negative test results. Testing is provided free of charge. Health insurance is not required for tests at the county. Additional dates will, of course, be announced by the county and posted on our website. Again, appointments are required. To schedule an appointment, please call 973-877-8456 or go to www.essexcovid.org. You will be required to complete a short questionnaire. When finished, you will be provided with an appointment time and a confirmation number. Residents should bring the confirmation number with them, and it is asked that they arrive 15 minutes before their scheduled appointment. The County of Essex will hold a food distribution event on Thursday, March 4 at St. Matthew AME Church, located at 336 Oakwood Avenue in Orange. The event will be held rain or shine. It will start at 9 a.m. and 1,000 boxes of food will be distributed. Governor Murphy recently expanded the COVID-19 vaccine eligibility requirements. The following groups will be eligible effective March 15: pre-K to grade 12 educators and support staff, child care workers, transportation workers, additional public safety workers such as probation workers, migrant farm workers, members of tribal communities, homeless people, and those living in shelters, including domestic violence shelters. Then, on March 29, those working in the following industries become eligible: food production, agriculture, and food distribution, elder care and support, warehousing and logistics, social services support staff, elections, hospitality, medical, supply chain, postal and shipping services, clergy, and the judicial system. Montclair residents are administered vaccines at the former Kmart building located at 235 Prospect Avenue in West Orange. To register for an appointment, please visit www.essexcovid.org or call 973-877-8456. That number has also been designated by the county to serve as a call center to answer Essex COVID-19 vaccination and testing questions. Call center hours are Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and on Saturday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Also, as of this afternoon, 1,277 companies have posted hundreds and hundreds of jobs on the State of New Jersey COVID-19 jobs and hiring portal. That can be found by clicking jobs.covid19.nj.gov. Again, jobs.covid19.nj.gov. And lastly, I would like to again reiterate the critical information that New Jerseyans feeling the emotional and mental toll of COVID-19 can get support from a special helpline. New Jersey Mental Health Cares, New Jersey's behavioral health information and referral service, is offering help to people dealing with anxiety and worry related to COVID-19. New Jerseyans can call 866-202-HELP. Again, that is 866-202-4357 for free confidential support. The line is staffed from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week by live trained specialists. Thank you, Mayor. That's all I have this evening.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Deputy Manager.
Yes, Mayor. I may be overstepping here, but I want to say that I believe that our workforce, our township workforce, does indeed represent what Montclair is all about. I myself, as a deputy manager, is Afro-Latino. The township clerk is a Latina. Our CFO is an Indian female. We have a deputy fire chief who's African-American. We have a deputy police chief who's African-American. And before her resignation, we also had a female. So I think we have a diverse workforce and a number, may I add, of female department heads. So I think our workforce does indeed represent what the ideal of Montclair is. So I just wanted to make that clear. It was bothering my soul, so to speak. That's it, Mayor.
Well, thank you, sir. Appreciate that. And I know we do all pride ourselves in holding that ideal. Madam Clerk.
No report, Mayor. Thank you.
Township Attorney.
I don't have any report, Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. All right. Let's go to today. Let's start with Mr. Deputy Mayor. You're up today.
I'm sitting here in anticipation. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I didn't know who you were going to call.
I didn't know until I always remember, like, which order did I do last? So anyway, this time. You're up.
Did we draw straws and I lost? Is that how we did this? No, seriously. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Scantlebury, for your comments. Very short this evening. Thank you, Mr. Stafford, for your report, and my best wishes to the members of our township workforce who are grappling with these COVID-19 issues. They've done exemplary work throughout, quite frankly, and sorry that they're dealing with that now, but my best wishes, please, to all of those individuals and their families. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, and noted that these are the same individuals out there doing snow removal and all these other pieces as well. So really just great stuff, and could not be more proud. I know Mr. Deputy Mayor and a number of us, we were all instrumental when we first came into office years ago in the decision not to privatize and to keep this in-house, and it has paid dividends in terms of the product, in terms of the work they put in terms of the savings we've seen. A great group of people doing a lot of hard work, and we thank them for their service. But thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Moving to Councilwoman Schlager, please.
Okay, yes, thank you, Mayor. I agree with Deputy Mayor Herlock. I send my best to all of our workforce who are ill at this time. I spoke to Rob Bianco a couple of days ago and extended that to him as well, and to keep me updated on how the gentlemen and or ladies are doing, and if they needed anything. I was hoping that if there was any great need that they had at this time, that Rob Bianco would let us know, and he said he would. I wanted just to the manager and deputy manager always get back to me on this, but it seems lately, well, they've come to a head lately. We have so many street lights that are out throughout the township, and a couple that are damaged. I sent you a photo of one the other day on Park Street. Is there anything that we could do to expedite the fixing of the light poles around town with PSE&G? I know it's an ongoing issue, but it just seems lately there's more than ever lights that are out.
Unfortunately, we are at the mercy of PSE&G. I know our township PSE&G liaison tells us that barring weather emergencies and barring other instances that slow PSE&G, that they seek to address lights outages that are placed on their system, which is what we do, within a certain amount of days. Mr. Scantlebury today sent word to the liaison, having already our system or our personnel already having placed in the PSE&G system for repair or replacement certain lights, and the response was just as I indicated. We will definitely put that in the queue, but make sure that you've entered it in the system, and also be advised that given the winds, we're not doing any bucket truck work today, possibly tomorrow, etc. So that does hinder their efforts. With respect to expediting, truthfully, we are at their mercy. We have code enforcement personnel in the evenings doing quadrants of the town, such that the entire town is covered for streetlight outages every so often. I can't remember the number of weeks for the rotation that it takes, but our personnel goes through, and the outages are communicated to someone in this building who enters them in what I would consider to be PSE&G's archaic system. And what I mean by that is, just like you would do with your home PSE&G utility bill, the township is required to keystroke in that a pole number is out. I can't believe that that I'm saying that to you in the year 2021, but that is what we deal with. So what I would say is, if you know of something like you did today, please send it, and we will ensure that it gets reported as soon as possible. And we certainly follow up as much as necessary until the light is repaired.
Okay, and that goes, our email exchange today and Mr. Scantlebury's, that goes for the park as well, for Edgemont Park, because there's lots of lights out in the park. So they maintain those lights as well.
Yes, I advised them today of the poles that were out.
Okay, yes, I saw the email. Thank you. Okay, well, I'll keep an eye out.
I just let me interject. This is not the first time we've sent it in to PSE&G.
Yeah.
In other words, we've done it on multiple occasions. Yeah. So PSE&G maintains all of the streetlights in town, not just some. They maintain all. So the reality is, though we do it multiple times, once we do it and once we keystroke it and push send, at that point,
Sure.
we're at their mercy. So,
Okay.
but we'll continue to follow up. So just let
Okay.
us know and we'll do it.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, thanks, Mayor.
You bet. Councilwoman Price Abrams.
Hey, good evening, everybody. I just want to sort of acknowledge that there's been a few, the wave of the weather. We sort of got a very cold day again today, but we had seen that slightly warming temperature. The J&J vaccines are approved for their authorization. It feels like we're trying to catch a wave of something positive. I think I am, so I'm trying to encourage everyone to be in the same space. This has been a long slog, and I really appreciate those of you who were helping to run the town before I stepped in. That it's really been a whole year of this. We're marking that moment now, and wishing again, as everybody else has, well to those of our own workforce who are out and hoping to recover quickly from COVID. But I guess we're trying to just turn this corner, and I think we are close. So I'm just going to put that out there. Honestly, I don't have a whole lot more to share at this point in time. I guess I just want to also remind folks, working closely with the bid, as Councilman Cummings and I both serve as members of their board. And this is true for all the businesses in town. Let's just remember also that, do your home cooking, but get out and order some of the food in, or in safe ways step into places, accommodations we have in town. We really have to help keep the business community, thriving and alive for the balance of this duration. So just a reminder, treat yourself and help out a business. So that's all I got for tonight. Everybody, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Cummings.
Mayor, how did I know you were calling me next? Like you had a rundown going. No, I echo Councilor Price Abrams' comments about supporting our businesses, working with the bid. They do a lot of work, but also I think there is a lot of support for the other business districts as well. So I'm glad she said that. Just a couple of comments. One, I think let's remember this cold weather are homeless, and the job that a lot of our folks are doing with the daytime and nighttime respite. I think that's important to remember, because sometimes, we get caught up in things, but we do have a homeless population that needs our support. And I think it's great that we continue to give that. Finally, Tuesday night, I will have the pleasure of introducing David Placek to the Fourth Ward community in a community-wide meeting. Mr. Placek agreed to kind of come on and talk to folks. A lot of people have been concerned about Lackawanna Plaza and what his vision for it is. I think this will be a good opportunity for folks to get to hear him. He seems to be a very good guy, and I'm interested in seeing how it's going to happen. We're going to actually do it live. It'll be on TV 34, and I'll have a link that'll be shared out on Thursday. I want to thank Tony and Rick for, kind of helping me with that. But more importantly, I think it's a good opportunity for a piece of property that has been in discussion for a long time now. So look forward to it. All of you guys are encouraged to join and pay attention to it. But more importantly, it's a good opportunity for the residents of the Fourth Ward to hear about that property. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. Let's go with Councilman Russo.
I think I said enough tonight. I've had a toothache, so I apologize for getting upset. They gave me something for that, but not enough. I just want to apologize, but I want to just say to everybody that I think this great man, Mr. Placek, who's been so generous to his tenants and tried to not raise any rents for months, way back when this pandemic started, he took the initiative to do that, and I hope he can make the development what we really need and what's best for the town, both with preservation and with getting a supermarket and getting us some, normalcy in the Lackawanna area. The other thing I want to just emphasize, I think I was muted. Teachers have to get vaccinated and schools have to have ventilation for it to be safe. Because I'm a prime example of that in the college level. I'm only able to teach because I got a real big room and I got my vaccine, and I had to insist on these things, something that, many of the professors are not able to get, but I was able to demand that at my age, I at least get the deference that was needed. And students are enjoying a great class. It's an urban political class, urban government class, and they're learning about cities and studying Detroit. as the most successful city in the 50s and 60s, and then the most bankrupt and a big failure in the last decade or so, but coming back. But the auto industry is what built Detroit, and we're studying that. Just want to say to my colleagues, it's been a pleasure working with you the last 8 months. I think it's about 8 months now that we've all been together here. And it's been very tough because we've had pandemic closing down the ability to see and interact. We're doing everything on Zoom. And the public has that same feeling, but we're trying our best to do what we can to help everyone and to respond to everyone. Yesterday, I got about 20 different emails and texts and messages asking for help from all over town that interacted with our local ward council people, which is where things should go. So sometimes there'll be somebody first ward and I'll talk to Bill Herlock and he'll get something done for them, or I'll tell them that's where you go and you go to the manager, the deputy manager, get it done. That's our system of government. Many people don't understand these setups that we have, the system we have, but that's the way we work in Montclair. We work together, wards and at large, and mayor and the council and the manager, deputy manager, and the attorney and the clerk. That's our team, and I think we've all done a good job trying to get through the pandemic. And I just pray we'll get through this because, a year ago, just about a year ago, in about a month, we'll be commemorating, that my mother passed away. But we didn't know at this point in March that that's what she really was suffering a lot in a nursing home and a seniors center, which we don't really know exactly what happened, but we know we just didn't see her for several weeks. And then we lost her in April, and Caggiano couldn't even do a nice funeral. Nobody could even come from all the families that knew her all over Montclair and all over the state, and relatives from everywhere. No one came, just me, my two brothers, and that's it. So that was a tragedy to lose my mother, Florence Russo. So I want to thank everybody for how you helped me through this last year. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
You bet, sir. Councilman Yakovels?
Thanks, Mayor. I too want to just mention that I am doing a town hall as well, a community-wide town hall on March 17th, St. Patrick's Day. No one will be out drinking at the bar, so you can join my town hall. Information's on the website. My intent is to answer as many questions as people want to give. I really want to kind of echo a little bit of what Councilor Russo was saying too. There's so much divisiveness. We need more patience and kindness and a lot less assumptions. There's so many lawsuits. I had somebody literally say something nasty to me in Facebook Messenger 2 weeks ago, and I saw that same person in Acme later that day. And they were like, "Oh, hey, how are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, a little less awkward now, isn't it?" Right? Like, here we are, two human beings that live in the same town. And it was just this epiphany. Everybody has such courage when we're behind a screen and using a keyboard with the language and and you even hear some of it with the tone in terms of calling in on the issues earlier. It's like we all live in this community together. Like, can we disagree on things and talk about things without being so disagreeable? And if you disagree with somebody without having it be such a dramatic thing and taking it so personally. And I say that sort of leading into what I want to say about rent control. However you feel about rent control in Montclair, like there's a democratic process here. And we're talking about 18 signatures, I think is the ultimate number that are short. If 1,700 people intended to sign and hundreds of people, hundreds were rejected and legitimate or not, and we're 18 short, I feel pretty strongly we need to err on the side of the democratic process here and the intent of people. And again, however you feel about rent control, whether you're for or against it, my gosh, we should not stand in the way of a democratic process going forward. If people want a ballot initiative, let's have a ballot initiative. I don't want that. I would rather have us rework the rent control bill. I'd rather have us repeal the existing rent control bill and let this council, myself, I'm brand new, Councilman Price Abrams, Councilman Cummings, we're all new. We didn't get to work on the ordinance. Give us a chance to work on it. Let's see if we can come up with a different set of solutions. Let's work with the property owners and the other people who called in. And so many people have called me over the last few weeks and months to talk about so much of the nuance and the complications in this issue. I don't want to play Monday morning quarterback. I wasn't part of the conversation, but this is tearing this community apart. And I am terrified of what a ballot initiative is going to end up doing in terms of tearing the community apart even more, on top of what's happening with the schools and parents fighting with teachers. So I just want us to err on the side of democratic processes, have open and honest conversations, agree to disagree in certain cases without being disagreeable, and just remember that we're all neighbors. So I know I'm a little bit soapboxy tonight, but these are just some of the things that are weighing heavily on me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'll just quickly note too that do have a town hall coming up. Hopefully individuals who are able to join on Thursday, March 4th at 7 p.m. Did receive a number of people reaching out on a few issues specifically, but we're going to have a town hall on confronting hate and white supremacy for sure. We have Scott Richmond from the Anti-Defamation League, the regional director. We've got our commissioner at large, Brendan Gill, who will be joining as well. Dr. Johnson Faneuil, who is the Civil Rights Division of the New Jersey Office of the Attorney General. Brian Whittle, who's the Assistant Attorney General for New Jersey, joining. We've got Weldon Powell, who's the Chief of Detectives for the Division of Criminal Justice. Lieutenant Tyrone Williams from the Montclair Police Department. And also we have from the office, we have one of the representatives from the New Jersey Office of Homeland Security and Preparedness, who will all be joining on that to have the discussion. They are taking a lot of the things that have been happening in town very seriously, and certainly important to address them and to make sure that we are on top of these pieces. So on Thursday, March 4th at 7 p.m., those who are interested can tune in. You can go to my Facebook page to sign up and receive the link. And then, of course, hear that conversation, which is occurring. As has been noted by many before, it's been said, but I want to just officially add my comments to it, thanking our teams for being out there. I know, Mr. Stafford, you and I were in a lot of communications during some of those major snow events we've been having and some of the other pieces, and really everybody doing a wonderful job around that. So, it's really sad to hear everybody being impacted by COVID. We know the challenges that it poses for residents, but we hope we get through this quickly as well. So that's another piece there. And then just finally, I will say before we move into the executive session, I certainly did hear those who called in tonight, those who are opposed to rent control and hoping that not before when it didn't go their way, but now that we don't take any further action. But I also heard from the residents, the renters, who are calling in asking us to do everything within our power to make sure we uphold a law which was duly passed. So in that regard, I know you have my commitment to continue to do everything possible to fight for the renters in this town, to make sure that we do all we can to make sure there is a common sense rent control ordinance in place, and that you are protected from uncontrollable rent hikes. And when I listen to representatives from the Landlords Association saying there's no linkage between housing and race and some of these other pieces, I mean, it just seems like such a disconnect to me. But again, maybe from someone on their end who's never experienced those connections. But that said, I'm committed to continuing that work, and hopefully we have the majority of the council that is willing to take those actions to defend rent control and to support those renters who've called in and the thousands of others that we represent. So I just want to thank everybody. And with that, I will entertain a motion to go into executive session. This is an executive session to discuss matters which can be held in private. And of course, this is regarding litigation, and I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We will enter into executive session, and Rick, just let us know when we're there. Thank you.
Almost there, sir. Mayor, we are live.
Mayor, you muted.
Thank you. Always the case somewhere here. One quick thing that I will note that I didn't get a chance to before to share with my council colleagues. We did receive a letter on behalf of the Open Space Institute, along with their partners at New Jersey Bike and Walk Coalition, thanking us for the letter and also our continued support for the Essex-Hudson Greenway project. They wanted to commend us, thank us, and say that they would look forward to working with us until this project becomes a reality. So they did send us a very nice long letter and everything else, and thanking everyone on the council and thanking all of us for the great work around this project. So I wanted to make sure I had a chance to read that into the record and share with all of you, as I told them I would. So thank you very much. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Right.
Well, everybody.